The scavenger ship Mujigi cut through the black silence of space. On the bridge, the only sounds were the low hum of the engines and the slow, steady beep of the navigation computer. Captain Jihu leaned forward in his chair, his eyes fixed on the large view screen. It showed a planet, hanging alone in the dark. It was a world of bright blues and deep greens, wrapped in soft, white clouds. It looked peaceful. It looked perfect. His first mate, Taisu, stood next to him. Taisu was a careful man. He saw the world on the screen, and he did not feel peace. He felt a cold worry in his stomach. He pointed a finger at his own data screen. Lines of red text scrolled down it. "Captain," Taisu said, his voice low and serious. "The warnings are still coming in. They are very old, but they are very clear. Every ship that has ever come here has sent the same message before they went quiet. The message is simple: turn back. It is the oldest and most serious warning in the entire galactic database. Every single spacefaring race has this same warning in their history. No exceptions." From a speaker on the console, another voice joined in. It was Seminit, the ship's engineer. She was down in the engine room, watching her own set of screens. "I am reading the planet now, Captain," she said. "It is strange. The air is perfect. The temperature is perfect. The water is clean. Life signs are everywhere. Plants, animals, it is full of life. But there is nothing else. No energy signals. No cities. No machines. No signs that anyone ever built anything here. It is empty. It is like a garden that no one ever visits." Jihu listened, but his mind was already made up. He saw a world that no one had ever touched. He saw a chance to find things that no one else had found. Old technology, rare minerals, anything. The payoff could be huge. It could buy them a new ship. It could buy them a new life. "The galaxy is afraid of a ghost story," Jihu said, a small smile on his face. "They hear a warning and they run away. But humans, we are different. When we hear a ghost story, we want to meet the ghost. We want to ask it questions. We make ghosts answer for their hauntings." He turned to Taisu. "Plot a landing course. Take us down." Taisu looked at his captain. He wanted to argue. He wanted to list all the reasons why this was a terrible, dangerous idea. But he knew Jihu. He knew that look in his eye. The decision was already made. With a slow sigh, Taisu turned to his console. His fingers moved over the controls, typing in the commands. "Plotting the course," he said, his voice flat. "Entering the atmosphere soon." The ship began to shake, just a little. The hum of the engines grew louder as they fought against the pull of the planet below. On the view screen, the blue and green world grew larger and larger until it filled the entire screen. They flew over mountains and wide, calm oceans. They saw forests of strange, tall trees with leaves of silver. They saw rivers that shone like liquid glass under the light of two suns. Jihu watched it all, his heart beating fast with excitement. This was it. The big find. Taisu guided the ship down towards a wide, open plain. The ground was covered in a kind of grass that shimmered with a soft, silver light. The ship's landing legs extended with a heavy clunk. The engines whined down to a quiet hum. Then, there was silence. They had landed. Jihu stood up. "Let's get ready to go outside," he said. Taisu did not move. He was staring at his screens. All the readings were still perfect. The air was safe to breathe. The temperature was comfortable. It was the most welcoming, most beautiful place he had ever seen. And that was exactly what filled him with a deep and powerful dread. Nothing was ever this perfect. Nothing was ever this welcoming. Especially not a place that had warned every other visitor to stay away. He had a very bad feeling about this. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss. Captain Jihu, First Mate Taisu, and Engineer Seminit stepped onto the surface of Xylos. The air was sweet and warm, like a perfect spring afternoon. Under their boots, the silver grass seemed to glow, each blade soft and cool to the touch. In the distance, strange and beautiful trees with purple leaves swayed gently. Small, six-legged creatures with fur like spun gold watched them with curious, calm eyes before hopping away. It was, without a doubt, the most peaceful place any of them had ever seen. "It's amazing," Seminit whispered, her scanner held tightly in her hand. "Readings are still perfect. It's like a park." They decided to explore on foot, leaving the Mujigi behind them. They hadn't walked for more than 10 minutes when Taisu stopped suddenly. He pointed ahead. "Captain. Look." Just beyond a grove of shimmering trees was a large, strange shape. As they got closer, their sense of wonder began to curdle into unease. It was a ship. Or what was left of one. Its hull was not made of metal anymore, it looked like ancient, petrified wood, twisted and gnarled. Vines with glowing flowers grew over it, weaving through what used to be viewports. The ship was being slowly, gently pulled apart by the plants. "That's a Graxian frigate," Tysus said, his voice hushed. "Their ships are famous for their strong alloys. This looks like it's been here for 1,000 years. A little further on, they found another wreck. This one was made of a crystal-like material, now shattered and cloudy. Tiny insect-like creatures were slowly carrying away tiny shards of it. There were no signs of a battle. No laser scorch marks, no broken weapons. It was as if the ships had simply landed and then stayed. Suminit aimed her scanner at the crystal ship. "I'm not reading any radiation, any toxins, nothing dangerous." Then her eyes widened. "But I am reading something in the air. It's not a germ. It's smaller. Tiny, tiny machines. Nanomachines. They're everywhere." Back on the ship, Suminit connected her scanner to the main computer. Her face grew pale as the data came in. "It's not a pathogen," she said, her voice tight with fear. "It's a symbiote. It doesn't want to hurt us. It wants to help." She explained what she was learning. The nanomachines in the air were like tiny, intelligent doctors and engineers. They could read the computer systems of a ship. They could read the biology of its crew. Their only purpose was to make things perfect. "It doesn't attack," Suminit said. "It offers. It shows a ship's computer how to improve its engines, its shields, everything. It shows a living being how to fix all their flaws, how to be perfectly healthy, forever." Just then, a soft chime came from Tysus' console on the bridge. He looked down, his blood running cold. "Captain, it's happening to us. The Mujigi's computer is receiving data. Unsolicited data. It's a full set of engineering schematics. It's showing me how to modify our engine to make it 3 times more powerful. The math it's beautiful. It's flawless." His voice was filled with a strange mix of terror and awe. The offer was incredibly persuasive. Jihu looked from Tysus' fascinated face to the viewscreen, which showed the peaceful, beautiful graveyard of ships outside. He understood now. The horror of this place was not in its danger, but in its generosity. "It's the perfect trap," Jihu said, a cold knot forming in his stomach. "It doesn't fight you. It gives you everything you could ever want. Better technology, a perfect body, a paradise to live in." He pointed a finger toward the petrified Graxian ship. "Those crews didn't die fighting. They saw the offer, and they agreed. They let this world perfect them until they became a part of it. They became part of the furniture. The most terrifying thing was not a monster that wanted to kill you. It was a gift that wanted to love you to death." The silence on the bridge of the Mujigi was heavy. Jihu, Taiso, and Suminit stared at the viewscreen, looking at the beautiful, deadly world outside. They now understood the horror of Xylos. It was a trap of kindness, a prison of perfection. They were trying to think of a way to escape when a sharp, blaring alarm shattered the quiet. A red light flashed on Tysus' console. "Captain! A massive energy signature. Right above us." On the main viewscreen, the sky seemed to ripple and tear. The blue and the clouds twisted like a reflection in water. Then, a ship appeared. It was long and sleek, made of a smooth, silver material that looked both ancient and incredibly advanced. It blocked out the light of the suns, casting a deep shadow over the Mujigi. This was no scavenger ship. This was a warship. A communication request flashed on the screen. Jihu, his heart pounding, accepted it. The face that appeared was unlike any they had seen. It was avian, like a bird of prey. It had large, dark eyes and sharp features covered in fine, gray feathers. It wore a uniform of dark metal. The being looked at them not with anger, but with a terrifying mix of fury and pure fear. "Human fools," the alien commander's voice was translated through the ship's computer. It was sharp and filled with a desperation that was chilling. "What have you done? You have triggered the very event we have spent thousands of years preventing." Jihu tried to speak. "We are just explorers, we." "You are trespassers on a grave," the commander, who called himself Varel, snapped. "This world is not a prize. It is a weapon. The last and worst creation of the precursors." Varel spoke quickly, his words painting a picture of an ancient tragedy. The precursors were the first great race. In their final days, they tried to create a perfect peace. They made what they called a gift, the nanosymbiote. It would end all conflict, all pain, all want. It would make everything and everyone perfect. But perfection is death. Varro cried. It strips away desire. It erases ambition. It destroys the individual. A being that is perfect does not dream, does not love, does not strive. It simply exists. It becomes a peaceful, contented part of the garden, like a rock or a tree. The precursors unleashed this utopia plague upon themselves and then tried to spread it. The rest of the galaxy, the young races, saw the horror of it. They fought a terrible war not for conquest, but for survival. They fought to push the plague back to its source and quarantine it forever. This planet is the source, Varro said, his voice dropping to a horrified whisper. Our only mission is to guard it. To ensure no one ever lands here. And if they do, he paused, and the fear on his face was replaced by a grim, terrible resolve. Our mission is to sterilize the site. We must erase you. We must destroy your ship completely. We cannot allow the plague to study your technology, to learn from your biology. It must not be allowed to adapt. It must not be allowed to spread again. On the view screen, the underside of the great cruiser Custodian began to glow. Long, menacing barrels slid out from hidden panels. A low hum vibrated through the hull of the Mujigi as the giant ship's weapons powered up, targeting them. Jihu felt a cold sweat on his neck. They were trapped. Below them was a world that wanted to love them to death. Above them was the entire galaxy, represented by that massive warship, ready to kill them out of fear. They had found the secret of Xylos, and it was a death sentence. The low hum from the Custodian's weapons grew into a deep, threatening whine. On the view screen, the energy around the cannons glowed brighter, building to a deadly peak. Commander Varro's face was a stone mask of grim duty. He was going to fire. There were only seconds left. On the bridge of the Mujigi, panic was a cold grip on everyone's heart. Their shields were weak. One hit from that warship would turn them to dust. GHU's mind raced. He looked from the warship on the screen to the peaceful, horrible world outside his window. Varro's words echoed in his head. We cannot allow the plague to learn from your biology. They are not afraid of us, Jihu said suddenly, his voice cutting through the fear. They are afraid of it learning. They think it will study us and become stronger. He turned to his crew, a wild, desperate idea in his eyes. So we don't let it learn. We teach it a lesson it can't understand. Tysa looked baffled. What lesson? How? Suminit's face lit up with a brilliant, terrified understanding. Chaos, she exclaimed. It's a system of perfect logic. It offers perfect math, perfect engineering, perfect health. It doesn't understand mess. It doesn't understand nonsense. It was the craziest plan any of them had ever heard. But it was the only one they had. Do it. Jihu yelled. Everything to the comms array. Don't try to shield us, broadcast. Broadcast everything. Tysa's hands flew over his console, rerouting power from life support, from engines, from everything that wasn't essential. The lights on the bridge flickered and dimmed. Suminit frantically dug into the ship's computer archives, pulling out files at random. What are you sending? Jihu asked. A little bit of everything, she shouted back. A moment later, the Mujigi began to broadcast. It wasn't a distress signal. It was a storm of noise. The sound of a frantic K-pop song with a catchy beat blasted out, but it was instantly overlapped by the screaming guitars and pounding drums of an old heavy metal track. Underneath that, the recorded sound of two people having a loud, passionate argument about something meaningless filled the gaps. Then, the roaring cheers from a football stadium erupted, followed by a clip of someone laughing uncontrollably, then crying. Suminit even found and sent files of abstract art, images that were just shapes and colors with no pattern or meaning. It was a tidal wave of human irrationality. It was beautiful, terrible nonsense. The effect on the planet was immediate and violent. The soft, serene glow of the silver grass flickered erratically, like a broken light bulb. The gentle, swaying trees shuddered as if in a hurricane. The peaceful, six-legged creatures outside let out piercing screeches and fled in terror, scrambling over each other to get away from the horrible, chaotic noise. The nano-plague in the air around the ship, which had been gently trying to interface with their systems, recoiled. The offer of perfect engine schematics that had been tempting Tysa vanished from his screen. The perfect, logical system of Xylos was being attacked by something it could not process, could not categorize, and could not perfect. It was like trying to solve a math problem with a scream. The influence of the planet, the feeling of peaceful perfection that had pressed in on them, shattered. It was as if an invisible bubble around the Mujigi popped. The air inside the ship suddenly felt normal again, just air, not a temptation. On the bridge of the custodian, Commander Varel watched his senses in utter disbelief. The targeting computer was ready to fire. But his science officer was shouting, "Commander! The plague! It's retreating. It is rejecting the human vessel. The readings are chaotic. I cannot make sense of it." Varel stared at the screen, his weaponry poised to destroy a miracle he did not yet understand. The last screaming guitar note faded. The overlapping cheers and arguments cut off. The broadcast was over. Suminit shut down the comms array, and power slowly returned to the other systems on the Mujigi. The lights on the bridge brightened. An eerie silence fell. It was different from before. The air no longer felt sweet and tempting. It just felt like air. Outside the viewport, the silver grass had stopped its frantic flickering. It now lay still, its glow dimmer, almost confused. The planet was quiet. On the bridge, Jihu, Taisu, and Suminit stood frozen, waiting. They watched the viewscreen, expecting at any second to see the bright flash of the custodian's weapons firing. They had just screamed nonsense at a godlike intelligence. They had no idea if it had worked, or if they had just made the galactic warship even angrier. High above them, on the bridge of the great cruiser custodian, Commander Varel was also frozen. His weapon officer had a finger poised over the firing control. "Commander? The order?" Varel did not answer. He was staring at his sensor displays, his large, dark eyes wide with shock. The readings were clear and impossible. The nanoplague's active signal, which had been wrapping around the human ship like a cocoon, had completely withdrawn. It had not adapted. It had not learned. It had recoiled. It had rejected the human ship as if it were something indigestible, something utterly foreign to its perfect logic. A low sound escaped Varel's beak. It was not a word from any known language. It was pure astonishment. He slowly raised a feathered hand. "Stand down weapons," he said, his voice quiet with awe. He opened a communication channel to the small, battered ship below. On the Mujigi, the console chimed. Jihu took a deep breath and answered. The avian commander's face appeared again. But the anger and fear were gone. Now, he looked at them with a deep, profound respect. "You," he began, his translated voice filled with wonder. "You did not fight it. You did not reason with it. You shouted it down. Your chaos, your glorious, irrational imperfection, it is your armor." Jihu felt the tension in his shoulders ease, but only a little. He looked at the commander. "The question remains," he said. "What happens now? Do you still plan to erase us?" Commander Varel was silent for a long time. He looked at his crew, then back at the screen. He was making a decision that went against thousands of years of rules. The old directives were written for a galaxy that could only do two things, run away, or fall to temptation, he said finally. They did not account for a third option. They did not account for humanity. He stood up straighter, his decision made. "We will maintain the outer quarantine. We will continue to warn the galaxy to stay away. But you, your species, you have passed a test we never knew existed." Varel looked directly at Jihu. "The guardianship of Xylos must change. We will be the wall that keeps others out. But humans will be the watchers on the threshold. You will be the ones who are allowed to walk here, to ensure the silence remains. You are the only ones it cannot tempt." A new understanding was forged in that moment, not with a treaty, but with a look of mutual respect between two completely different kinds of people. The galaxy would keep its fearful distance. But humanity, with its messy, chaotic, and beautiful spirit, would become the keepers of the galaxy's most dangerous secret. They were the only ones who could walk the silver grass and not become part of the garden.